And joining the conversation tonight is Clinical Assistant Professor of Psychiatry at Weill Cornell Medical College, Ziv Cohen. Thank you so much for being here. It's great to see you.
Good to see you.
All right, so let's start with burnout here. I just want to talk about the definition by the WHO. They define it as a syndrome resulting from chronic workplace stress that has not been successfully managed. So I think a lot of us suffer from that, though. All jokes aside, though, how serious of a problem is it, and how important is this classification?
So I think that, for those of us who work with working folks, whether blue collar, white collar, whatever kind of work, we see a lot of burnout. And essentially that's somebody who has become disengaged with work, is no longer able to take pleasure in work, feels bored, feels listless. The problem is that has a overlap with depression. And so the American body of psychiatry, the American Psychiatric Association, says we want to talk about depression and we want to treat depression. We don't want to focus as much on burnout. But here the WHO is really sticking their neck out and saying, no, we need to pay attention to burnout as a specific issue.
So because they're saying this, how do you differentiate the two?
Well, I think that it's on a scale of severity. So according to the American classification, burnout would be something that we would think of as an adjustment disorder, which is generally more mild than a full-blown depression. So I think that would be the distinction, is how severe the symptoms are.
Is this one of those areas, because there are intricacies in the diagnosis, where the WHO maybe shouldn't be saying things like this?
Sure. I mean, I think that there's a lot of good questions about whether this is a good construct as a real medical disease or not.
Right. All right. So, but talk about what the actual designation will accomplish here. Awareness, treatment, potentially. You're talking about depression. Regardless of what the root cause is, it still shines a light on it.
I think most of us know people in our lives that we think suffer from burnout, and whether it's people that we know or celebrities, like you might think of Anthony Bourdain, working very hard. Clearly in that case it did cross over into depression, so I think educating the public, putting that term out there, I think is very helpful. And
we just heard this week about Kit Harington from Game of Thrones, who apparently just checked himself into a rehab clinic in Connecticut for stress and alcohol abuse. When you have more people like him who are doing this and taking this step, how much of a difference does that make in terms of reducing the stigma?
I think it helps. I think that when people come out and they speak publicly, it makes everyone feel that it normalizes it. And if Kit Harington has it, he's a hero on a TV show,
right,
then we can all feel that it's heroic to actually share our problems rather than a sign of weakness.
Not just any TV show, one of the most epic TV shows of all time, by the way.
Agreed.
All right, okay, moving on. And here's an issue that I'm probably dealing with as a parent in my own house, and that's just getting my kids to pry themselves away from those screens, from the games that they're playing, from their consoles.
Right.
Kids. It takes 5 times just to get them to look up. Anyway, WHO now talking about this and saying that they're designating video game addiction also a health disorder. Can doing that convince parents to act? Listen, parents know there's a problem already.
Right. So I think that here they're on more solid ground in terms of medicalizing it, because the pure stimulation of a video game, the way that engages our brains and engages a child's brain, really does appear to at times make the child not really have control over their desire to grab that joystick and the number of hours that they spend on the device. So I do think that educating parents and putting it out there that this can actually become a problem like an addiction is very helpful. Again, ultimately, philosophically, whether we want to actually say that it's an addiction akin to a drug addiction is debatable, but I think that it's helpful to educate the public with this.
And to be fair, you have not just children who are dealing with this, you have adults who are dealing with the problem also. But what advice do you have for parents, though, in order to help them tackle this issue in their own homes?
I think that it has to start early, and the main point is that video game playing has to be supervised. It's not an activity where you park the kid and then you can go do what you want to do. It has to be curtailed, it has to be limited, and it has to be a reward rather than just a routine part of the day.
Agreed. All right, Ziv Cohen. It's great to see you. Thanks for being on the show.